Why? Why are you doing this to me? Don't blame me. Blame that darn cat. What's up, guys? I'm Pencil here, and here we are to have a discussion on whether or not Yuki Tsukumo is just fodder. Like, I wish that we may have to throw it with Ghetto. We may have to straight with Ghetto. Maybe even lower. Like, Yuki Tsukumo may just be straight trash, dog. Ugh. Now, of course, we have a hefty, defty, refty little chunk to talk about, so let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. What's up, guys? I got the pencil here, and fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, so, Yuki Tsukumo, right? You know, a pretty beloved character. I'd say, not like, I haven't heard anyone really espouse that Yuki Tsukumo is like their actually, that's a lie. But I've heard like one or two people espouse that Yuki Tsukumo is their favorite character from the series. But like, you know, a character who's, I'd say they're up there. There's something. Of course, I made a whole discussion video talking about Yuki Tsukumo's wasted potential, but for the longest time, even with how much waste potential he had, plot twist, I'm talking about Choso? Nah, we're going to talk about Choso and his fate coming up in another video. But in terms of Yuki Tsukumo, I made a whole video talking about her wasted potential. But one of the things that Yuki Tsukumo had for the longest time, and I'm talking the longest time, and by longest time I mean like however long it's been since like 243, and whenever she got turned into a black hole, whatever she had one thing, and that was power. Because her main opponent was Kenjaku, and by main opponent I mean only opponent. Yuki Tsukumo only makes 3 appearances in the narrative, and the first one she doesn't fight. Well, actually, no, she makes 4 appearances in the narrative. One of them is in a flashback where she doesn't fight. Another one's in a flashback where she doesn't fight with Ghetto, and another one is against Ume and Kenjaku in Shibuya, but Ume was not only under the influence of Choso's mystical magical juice, not in that way, but kind of in that way. But also, you know, Ume was preparing an attack for, like, fodder, not to talk of a special grade sorceress. So, Yuki Tsukumo showing up there, I mean, it's fine. You can use that for scaling, but I think everybody named Mama knows that Yuki's main scaling comes from her big decisive battle, not in the demon-infested Shinjuku, but against Kenjaku. Big Jaku in Suguru Gento's body. Now, here's the thingamajig about this whole little biggity battle right here. For the longest time, before a certain chapter came out, everyone was gassing Yuki up, me included. You know, I had Yuki pretty high up there. Like, it wasn't really too blasphemous, too outlandish, too fiendish to really have her top 10. You know, some people were memeing some top 15. And, you know, if you were feeling extra jacked and juicy, depending on how much you really wanted to gas Kenny and how much you really wanted to gas a hypothetical fumble of Tengen, you could get Yuki all the way up to top 5 if you were feeling a little bit devious. I don't even think it's hard to claim at this point that she's easily a top 5 hitting character in the first at full power and full health. But of course, like I said, she's used to be considered in that echelon. She's experienced a little bit of a fall, and that fall is very similar to the scaling of another character. Yuta Okotsu. Now, Yuta Okotsu is ironically enough a person who experienced the scaling debuff, but caused the scaling debuff for Yuki now. Because what happened? In 243, it gave me flashbacks. It gave me straight flashbacks to the Ryu versus 15 Finger Maguna incident. So, if you don't know what happened to Ryu and Yuta scaling towards 15 Finger, and what's allowed me to push an agenda that I'm going to keep pushing so the day I can't push it no more, though admittedly a lot of people think the day's already come, 15 Finger Maguna pulled out and blitzed Ryu Ishigori. That is Yuta's main opponent in the modern narrative. You definitely have Earl. She's very, very important for Yuta scaling. We're going to be talking about Earl in a little bit. You definitely have Kuro. You definitely have Itadori. But in terms of just like who actually seemed to do anything to Yuta, be able to damage him, push him to his limits a bit, make him whip some things out that he haven't whipped out before, and that was mainly the Sendai fight. And the main person who caused Yuta to take him a little bit seriously, start putting some paws on him, was Ryu Ishigori. And of course, with Ryu Ishigori being the man with the highest cursed energy output in all of history, another big swinger, heavy hitter, having direct relevancy and relativity to use Okatsu. A lot of people were believing, oh yeah, Yuta, he liked that for real. He's eating hits from the highest output in cursed energy history. That would include things like 20 fingers Sukuna in terms of output. Ryu's punching harder, he's blasting bigger, and Yuta's able to eat those. He's even able to beat those. Yuta, he gotta be smacking up 15 finger. Come on now. Then a little chapter dropped. This chapter 216, I think. I actually forget, but it's 216. And we had a slight little interaction there. Just a slight one that through all of Ryu scaling, and by proxy, since Yuta had only had one real major relevant encounter where he was remotely pushed to use his full power, all of Yuta scaling in the trash. And it was 216, where Suguna Chad walked up, gave Ryu a little tickle, tore his chest open, which is crazy to think about. Gave Ryu a little tickle, tore his chest open, and then when Ryu ate that first one, he got trisected after getting literally perception blitzed. And naturally, Yuta's speed scaling went out the window, like all just straight, perished right then and there. At least in my opinion, I know a lot of people still argue it, and I know some people still believe it, and there are people who made solid arguments for it, but at least in my opinion, in terms of just raw speed, it's very clear that a trying Maguna, aka a trying 15-finger Suguna, is just way above Yuta, because Yuta was never speed blitzing or perception blitzing Ryu Ishigori. The two were relative in speed. So that automatically killed a lot of Yuta scaling. But unlike Yuki Tsukumo, who's we're going to get into, and you may be wondering why I even bring up Ryu so much, while Yuta scaling fell off a cliff, the cliff wasn't necessarily that steep. It was like, oh no, he's falling from here to here. Like, obviously, it's 15-finger Suguna. It's hard to believe many characters in the verse could beat him. In fact, you may be looking at someone who believes barely any characters in the verse, except for like Satoru Gojo, can defeat him at all. But you may be wondering, why am I bringing this up? Why is it such an oddly specific situation? It's in this Yuki video. And yes, it is a Yuki video. And let me tell you, Yuki experienced a very similar phenomena at the hands of Yuta Ogotsu. Yeah, I gotta call him that now. He is Yuta Ogotsu, because a certain man said, hold on, let me burn these tickets to Africa and let me get my clout back. And he proceeded to appear after the battle of Kenjaku versus Takaba, the comedian sorcerer, and decided that, you know what? Let me show you what Miguel taught a brother how to do. And he appeared from the shadows. No sheath. Like, notably, he didn't have a scabbard on him. And just Kenny's head hit the floor. Now, of course, there have been some Kenny culprits out there. I was one of them, but I don't know. The cold hard core facts look pretty solid, unfortunately. And with that being the case, it just looks like a base Yuta, no ring, no unmanifested Rika to hold Kenny still, no techniques used, nothing. Just Yuta appeared behind Kenjaku. Kenjaku realized Yuta was there, turned around, looked at Yuta, and Yuta perception blitz behind the man, removed his dome piece, and Kenny got cooked by base Yuta. Now, I'm not sure about you, but for the longest time, I had Kenny at my number 3 spot in the verse. Curse spirit manipulation, a burialist domain, an anti-gravity technique, an unknown possible third technique on top of that, the biggest, fattest, juiciest, most scrumdiddlyumptious brain in the verse, obviously probably has to be him. And then he got decapitated by base Yuta. Now, of course, you may be wondering, okay, Pencil, once again, I don't know how this has to deal with Yuki. Sure, Yuta knocked Kenjaku's scaling off a cliff, but you know exactly why this does horrid things, and I mean horrid things, to Yuki. Because let me remind y'all about Yuki Tsukumo and her amazing feats. She hit Kenny once when Kenny didn't know what was going to happen. She got one clean hit on him in that entire encounter. The whole thing. You can go I'm not kidding. I am literally not kidding. I may be wrong, and feel free to correct me. He has to block some of her hits when he's being weighed down by Garuda after he hits her with a sure hit domain expansion. But outside of that first one hit, which knocks both his arms off, makes his neck a little bit sore, that's the only hit she lands. While she's being backed up by Tengen and Choso. And not only that, it's the only hit she lands after Kenny burned a whole bunch of CE on a barrierless domain expansion, consistent spamming of an RCT-fueled technique, which means he's burning RCT. It'll burn a whole chunk of RCT to snap his arms back in that place and fix his neck. So Yuki Tsukumo, even after healing, by the way, struggles and fails to hit Kenjaku, which at least to me implies that Yuki has at best low-end relativity to him. And that's kind of being generous. Once again, one hit is embarrassing for Yuki. And once she gets a little bit of healing up and gets her output back to some sort of decent measure, it just doesn't do enough. She's out here getting grabbed, blocked, misdirected, removed by Kenjaku. So you may see the problem here. Yuki barely steals a Kenjaku. I know a lot of people say Tengen fumbled the bag for Yuki. Yuki would have won if Tengen let her open him. Yuki would. No, she wouldn't have. She clearly would. Especially since we see how barrierless domains interact with non-barrierless domains, we know how it works now. Before, it was just theory. But Gege said, we gotta do more than theory, and showed us exactly how a barrierless domain and a open barrier domain interact. I keep saying barrierless because I'm so used to saying barrierless, but technically it's an open barrier domain. We see how they interact. Yuki Tsukumo with her little barrier domain, at best, she would have had Kenjaku in like a stable 1v1 situation, but based on her later speed scaling throughout that entire encounter, it doesn't look like she'd be able to hit him in domain once they both get the 120% stat buff, and Kenny knows what she can do. And then, as she's fighting, her domain's gonna shatter, and then she's gonna get boom, 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 boom. So Kenny clearly scales above you. It's not even, I don't want to say it's not close, because very clearly she scales up, I would say flat out above him at full health, full stamina, and full technique output, because once again, he raised up his arms to block, and he just got blown straight on through. So obviously, AP-wise, she's good, but in terms of hacks, in terms of battle IQ, in terms of general IQ, in terms of speed, she's just not that gal. And it just looks like now, unfortunately, just due to how it's drawn, right? Like, notably, Yuki and by proxy, Kenny's scaling could be saved so much if Yuta hadn't been noticed at all. If we had just cut, Kenny says, you know what, you were pretty funny, and then his head just hits the ground, he just didn't even notice Yuta until he was literally decapitated, we could save a whole bunch of this. But I'm sorry, we can't knock Yuta for bush camping, because that's the smart thing to do, and two, Kenny literally turns around and looks at him. He literally, in the official translation, he literally gets out the full technique name. He just, Yuta just blitzes the anti-gravity technique. How are we supposed to do this? And once again, the reason this is so bad for Yuki scaling and bad for Kenny scaling is because it was base. Now, personally, I'm in the camp that Yuta doesn't actually get much of a tech or a stat buff when he gets fully manifested Rika. I just think he gets access to cursed techniques and access to fully manifested Rika. I don't think his base stats go up all that much, but if you do think that, then the gap gets even worse. Because remember, base Yuta, I'm not saying he's fodder, but he doesn't have any scaling to Ryu or Uro. He's able to somewhat go relative with them in terms of speed, but then he just gets knocked away by Ryu, and Uro kind of just toys around with him. So basically, Yuta, he kind of ain't got nothing. Sure, Unmanifested Rika is something completely different, but once again, Yuta didn't need to use Unmanifested Rika against Kenjaku. It was literally just Yuta. Yuta just showed up, and suddenly Kenny's head was on the ground. So this means that in terms of just speed, by the raw blitz that occurred there, this means in terms of speed, it goes base Yuta, a massive gap to the point where Kenny's technique activation was blitzed. Then Kenny, then another massive, well, not massive, but a narrower gap with Yuki being just barely able to tag Kenny. And I mean barely. I'm talking we're wincing to see her tag Kenny once and then fail to actually land a clean hit again. So you know what this means, right? This means that Yuki's fodder. I hate this. There's no other way to put it. Not even, here's the thing, right? Not even necessarily fodder. Let's not say she's fodder, because notably the only things that very explicitly do real solid damage to Yuki are a sure hit from an open barrier domain and mini Uzumakis. These aren't exactly pillow hits. It's not like I ran into the verse and I punched Yuki in the mouth until she took extreme damage. But still, we have nothing else for her. We can assume that those are good, But, like, we don't know how many cursed spirits went into those mini Uzumakis. How powerful they were. Sure, they were condensed, so maybe they're more powerful than the maximum beam, at least the full-size one, but we don't know that. Once again, purely speculation. And we don't know how strong Kenny's sure hit technique is, because we've only seen it used on Yuki. So Yuki, speed-wise, scales below Kenjaku. Yuki, AP-wise, is vulnerable to Kenjaku, but able to damage him. And durability-wise, she's just below Kenjaku once again. And Kenjaku's lower than Yuta in pretty much every metric now. Except for, like, maybe knowledge and battle IQ. Maybe. But in terms of speed, seemingly, well, maybe not hacks. Because once again, Kenny has, like, omni hacks with the cursed spirit manipulation. But, like, in all physical stats, like speed, durability, AP, Yuta's just clearly above. Clearly above. And notably, you can definitely chalk this up to Kenjaku having blocked the hit with his arms, even though they got punched right on through. So maybe it slowed Yuki's punch down. But I want you to realize that whole interaction implies that Yuki's fist, when swinging full force on a Kenjaku who doesn't know what's coming, meaning his guard is likely lowered, all he did was react like this, she couldn't remove his head. But guess who did? Yuta Okotsu straight the head right off in base. In base. Now, Yuki, who, like I said, was kind of in contention to be a relatively powerful character, right? Like, he made some, I mean, I'd say they're mostly meme arguments. You can make some meme arguments for top 5 before 243. You could definitely make solid arguments for top 10. I don't think any of those arguments would be meme arguments if you want to do top 10. And once again, top 15 was kind of always a lock for Yuki. But now, like, lower and slower than base Yuta. Well, no. Lower and slower than a base Yuta victim. A base Yuta, like, Earl's not a base Yuta victim. Maybe with unmanifested Rika, she may become one, but even then, that's questionable. Because she's able to eat hits from fully manifested Rika, who's clearly stronger than unmanifested Rika. And also eat hits from Yuta with technique, who just hit her with, like, a pause wombo combo, and she didn't even get knocked out by that. And it's not like you can just say domain diff, because Earl has a domain of her own, and is also more experienced than Yuki. So now, Earl, who I would have pretty confidently given a dub before, or at least Yuki a dub over before, kind of just slides on up, because she has superior scaling and relativity and speed to base Yuta. Kenny don't. Neither does Yuki now. Ryu Ishigori. For the longest time, I was even planning, before 243 came out, one of the biggest battles I was planning to do was Yuki Tsukumo versus Ryu Ishigori, who is actually the heaviest, hardest Slabanaka in the verse of Jujutsu Kaisen. And, you know, while you can still definitely make the argument just on being able to damage, but then again, he's a base Yuta victim. How good is his durability really? Like, I know there's definitely, like, certain properties that go in different, right? Like, obviously, Yuki, despite hitting with a whole bunch of mass behind her fist, is still hitting with her fist, a relatively blunt object. Yuta swung with a whole katana. Like, I don't think I need to tell you that slicing at something and punching at something will have two very different effects, but still. Like, Yuta's blade, before, while he was in base, when he was trying to get rid of Kurushi, it was being blocked by some, like, amped cockroaches in Kurushi's arm. He broke, like, he lost the sword, so you don't get to see how it interacts with Earl or Ryu, but presumably would have done the same thing if Kurushi would have blocked it with some magical cockroaches. Like, this sounds so stupid, and I know it sounds wrong, but you know what this kind of does? If base Yuta is really able to victimize Kenjaku like that, once again, purely by himself, Kurushi. How did Kenny beat Kurushi? That's the one thing that's so weird about 243, because, like, it makes you look back at the rest of the series real funny, like, because it's like, now then, how did certain things happen? I guess Kenny just had to gank Kuro or something, because there's no way he should have beat Kuro, because Kuro's able to go slightly relative to base Yuta. Sure, he's holding back, but he's only holding back RCT. You could argue he's holding back against Kenjaku. There's not a single sweat mark. There's no vein expression on Yuta. In 243, there's nothing in terms of indicating, oh, Yuta's going all out. He's trying to draw in a deeper well of power. We don't see a ring on him. Nothing. There's nothing to imply that Yuta is really, like, stressing his limits at all. He just shows up Kenjaku right off. Couldn't do that to Kuro. Kuro actually forced Yuta to do something he didn't want to do. Fully alone, base Yuta, unmanifested Rika not summoned. Now, with 243, once again, taking purely at face value, there are definitely some stuff. There's stuff you can do to save Yuki's sailing. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But once again, I'm just going to start listing off characters who, just based on scaling relative to base Yuta, should realistically come in and pack Yuki up pretty cleanly now. It's so crazy because once again, this is a super hard drop off, like one of the sharpest drop offs. Notably, Ryu getting one shot by 15 finger, it put Yuta speed scaling in the trash, but not necessarily the rest of his scaling. Like durability wise, he's still one of the bulkiest characters in the verse. Hacks wise, he's still one of the best characters in the verse. AP wise, I mean, it's kind of tricky because of Ryu like getting one tap. Well, Yuta didn't one tap him, but still, like, it wasn't too bad. But at least for Yuki, like this hardline knockoff, the only thing that doesn't suffer drastically is her AP, which clearly doesn't scale to her durability. Like Kenny even notes that, oh, well, you add more mass to yourself to increase your physical attacks, your base dura doesn't actually increase that much, if at all. So you're kind of bullyable, and we see that interaction. But like, now just think about every single character that scales to or above base Yuta. I know there are people who aren't going to be happy when I say this, but now Ryu should win. Now Earl should win. Now Curl should give Yuki a good fight, if not beat her. Once again, just because of the speed disparity. And, hey, I'm not going to say it, but if the Life Festering Blade was enough to pierce the defenses of Yuta Okotsu, the bulkiest character in the series behind maybe Satoru Gojo, Ryoma Tsukuna, and an adapted Maharaga, you mean to tell me that Yuki's going to eat a hit from the Life Festering Blade? I don't think so. I don't think her RCT's that good either. I think she would get her guts blown out. And in the way that half the fandom wants her guts blown out. And not in the way that she literally got her guts blown out. So, like, there are things to it. Other characters who, once again, were in very popular contention in terms of this discussion, Maki and Toji. You can cover them individually, but together, Maki and Toji, since they are equals, they're stated equals by the narrator and all that, before, you could make arguments about Yuki versus Maki and Toji. Heck, I'm planning a video on it. I'm still going to make that video. No, now just maybe Maki versus Yuki, because I think Toji would kind of be overkill with the words we were having. But with it being the case, you could have kind of made an argument before, but now Yuki's speed scaling so trash, and they have Soul Split Katana, meaning that her Dura, no matter how good or bad you think it is, it doesn't matter. She'll literally get Perception Blitzed. Once again, any relativity, so 15-finger Maguna, in terms of speed, is way better than anything Yuki had to offer even before the 243 nerf. But now, I don't think I need to convince you that Maki and Toji should scale at bare minimum, going as low as possible with it. As low as you can go. All the way down. I don't think it's too unreasonable, too blasphemous. Like, I don't want to say so myself. I don't think it's too blasphemous to claim that Maki and Toji scale relative speed-wise to base Yuta. I don't think that's too wild or buku bonkers a claim to make. At least I don't think there's like a whole. I don't see base Yuta coming out in Perception Blitz and Toji and Maki like he came out in Perception Blitz and Technique Blitz Kenjaku. And once again, Yuki's slower than Kenjaku, so now those two just have their way with her. Another character who should now just have their way with Yuki Tsukumo, Hakari Kenji. Bro, not only has direct scaling to Urume now, but also has direct scaling to Kashimo, who Italy. Sorry, Kashimo. Sorry, Kashimo, but we're about to cover him in a second. Though, admittedly, I think no one was really making an argument of Kashimo versus Yuki. I mean, it's a fun argument before 243. But once again, 243 kind of just took it out to the back of the farm like a horse who couldn't run and just unloaded in it. But for Hakari Kenji, once again, if you go with the consistent narrative implications, I feel iffy about this myself, and it just kind of feels weird just based on Hakari's like relatively lagging piece. But with that being the case, if you go with the narrative implications that Gojo sees Hakari and Yuta as the only people who could hypothetically step up for him, not including Maki, meaning that Hakari and Yuta should just be definitively above Maki, well then Hakari should Perception Blitz Yuki too. Just punch her a bunch. And then she'd be so much slower than him, because once again, I need to remind you, there's a whole Perception Blitz gap between base Yuta and a on-guard Kenjaku, who's activating a whole curse technique. And then there's the gap between Kenny and Yuki. Her should just punch Yuki a whole bunch, if she could even hit him, like legitimately. Even if you think Yuki's able to eat a couple of Hakari punches, she's a domain victim. She's a jackpot victim, 100%. She just keeps bullying her. Especially since her RCT and CE amounts don't seem to be that high, considering how quickly she got. So that ain't looking all too good. Not looking all too scrumdiddlyumptious. Who's another character that hypothetically has some sort of scaling to 15-finger Maguna in terms of physicals, and could also now hypothetically just beat Yuki? Oh, yeah. Itadori Yuji. Obviously, now it's even worse, considering, Itadori Yuji was able to tag Sukuna and make him jiggle. It's not jiggle. He made him shake. Pencil, he didn't make him jiggle. He made him shake. In 244, we see Yuji slide with the mean hit. Makes Sukuna jiggle. Why is it, Jiggle? Why is that what my mind goes to? What is wrong with? But essentially, he makes Sukuna throw it back a little bit. And with that being the case, that's a perfect that Yuki has. And that's a better speed. Though, Millie, I'll definitely agree with the most people on that. Like, obviously, Yuji, like, Sukuna's very much playing around with them. But still, 15 finger scaling in terms of speed and physicals and stuff like that. Being able to tag 15 finger. That's way better than anything Yuki has to offer. Once again, I gotta remind you, in terms of physicals, 15 finger is like a pretty much a demon, because like he shows up and like stops Gojo from instantly executing Kenjaku. Kenny was also going to be a 15 finger victim. He was a 15 finger victim to the point where he was sticking around 15 fingers so much so Gojo couldn't just come in and get his fingers all over Kenny's big old brain. So unfortunately, Yuji Itadori probably also just beats the brakes off Yuki Tsukumo. Just do better physicals, better stats. And once again, since Yuki has no like external range, he has to hit you physically. Yuji's gonna be weave, and just start piecing her up. No bev, nothing, all biscuits. Another character, Kashimo Hajime, just starts. Once again, that should just be an absolute massacre. Like whether or not you agree with the Hakari statement, right? Like Hakari being stronger than Yuta. No matter what, however you feel about that, and you think, oh well, Kashimo scales nowhere. I've already talked about it. I think Kashimo, at least in Mythical Beast Amber, scales to 20 finger Omega Fatigue Sukuna. I think that is not too crazy to say. And he's able to tank hits from and concern Sukuna enough that Sukuna's like, hold on, let me not get hit by some of Kashimo's attacks. So I think if Kashimo's able to do anything to that 15-finger Sukuna, or not 15-finger, that 20-finger Maguna, even though that one is brain damage, missing an arm, missing some legs, missing some teeth, missing an eye, I still think that's way better than anything Yuki has to offer, considering she barely scales to Kenjaku. I just smell another pack right there. Kashimo is just gonna be lighting the Yuki. That's the thing. It's so bad. It is so bad. Because like base Yuta is a high bar to clear. Don't get me wrong. Clearly, look at Kenny. Kenny couldn't clear it. But like with that being the bar, there are characters who should at least scale relative. Because realize you don't have to scale above base Yuta. That's the sad thing with Yuki. You no longer have to scale above base Yuta to hopefully give her a good fight or outpace her. No, you just need to scale in the ballpark of base Yuta. Because Kenny doesn't scale in the ballpark of base Yuta based on how their little battle went. And Yuki barely scales to Kenny. This domino effect, this cascade is what's just annihilated Yuki's skill. I'm not even sure if Gege realizes what he did, because this seems like too weird. Though admittedly, it's not like this is the first time a special raid's kind of been like, fodder? I hate to say that, but look at Sukuna Geto. Sukuna Geto was kind of trash. I'm going to make a whole video talking about him one day. And he's kind of booty meat in of himself, but like, in terms of like technique usage, in terms of battle IQ, in terms of ability, in terms of stat, but like, he's kind of trash. We're in the grand scheme of things. And now Yuki's fallen into that tier too. You have two special grades, which are, I guess they're both descendants of the great, the Fujiwara, like Gojo and Yuta, two special grades who just stand at the pinnacle of the series, I guess. And then you have the other two special grades who are coming to booty me. Like, I'm not saying can I name 15 characters stronger than Yuki Tsukumo? Obviously, I don't even convince you with Gojo, but Sukuna, 15-finger Sukuna, 3 fingers, no, I'm kidding. But Sukuna, Gojo, Kenjaku, clearly, Yuta, fully manifested Rika, probably. Maharaga won't count. Fully manifested Rika won't count because that falls under Yuta. Yuji, Hakari, Maki, Toji. Heck, you could make a pretty solid argument just being able to tag a post-awakening. Well, then again, that's kind of, I guess, Curse Naoya would be kind of a mean one, but he also has a domain. Honestly, I don't even give it to Curse Naoya because of the speed gap there. Like that. Again, I need 6 whole more. Well, once again, Ryu, Uro, Karushi, that's 12. Who else scales to base Yuta? Kashimo, that's 13. Got my toes wiggling. Can I name 2 more characters? I probably, if I think about it just a little bit longer, I'm trying to run through like all the colonies and all the major. I mean, speed-wise, you can make some meme arguments for Jogo. But no, I'm kidding. But I think, yeah, Yuki may still be a top 15 character, which is good. But just due to how hard of a clip, and once again, I'm excluding characters like Rika and Maharaga. They're my last two. If you want to just throw two more in there, heck, Ahito would probably load different too. Takaba, there's another one. So like, there are characters, and I can probably think of some like actual more genuine characters because of how bad Yuki Tsukumo's scaling took a hit from Yuta low diff and Kenny. If Yuta had to struggle even a little bit against Kenny, Yuki's scaling would be so much more solid. But with only one fight in the entire narrative that actually in Oroman, relative to Hakari Kenji, what happens to Yuki when she gets her arm from? So yeah, you can just name 15. That is just, she's not a top 15 character anymore. Yuki Tsukumo, who is a pretty much, I'd say solidly a top 10 character in the entire series, now just fall off a cliff because she's literally a base Yuta victim, which is super embarrassing. Oh, it's so embarrassing. She's just a base Yuta victim. I get. There's no other way to put it. And here's the thing: it gets worse if you. It's even worse. But if you then again, like that'd be a stat off, and I think Yuki will win the stat off. Maybe if you think Kenny and Geto have equal stats, you could argue put Geto above Yuki's. That's about bad that matchup. And honestly, Geto was able to keep up physically with fully manifested Rika. I don't see Yuki doing that. She's a base Yuta. So yeah, Yuki, unfortunately, I have to, I'm not saying she's fodder. I'm not saying there's a single grade 1 in the verse who beats her. I'm not saying there are many curses in the verse who beat her. Like, curse not only is the only kind of meme one, but even that may not be too much of a meme just based on how bad her speed scaling is now. But like, man, one of the hardest drop-offs in the entire series. But of course, that's my opinion. If you guys think I missed on this one, you think Yuki has some way to argue whether some interpretation of her scaling, some interpretation of 243 that doesn't slap off Yuta to the extreme, you think there's something I have missed, please do not hesitate to correct me. This is one of the cases, one of the many cases. I genuinely hope I'm wrong. I hope I've missed something. I hope there's just something smack clear in the narrative that's like, no, you idiot. She clearly scales here, here, and here, not actually like, she's not actually just a base Yuta victim. Please let me know in the comment section down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave. I'm not going to say Yuta victim. Please leave the fallen goddess in the comment section down below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching once again. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do happen to have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also now become a member to the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks will include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Wakanda Plays, Redwell, 4765, and Greyhound. I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, Demix LND, and Igneal. I'd like to give a donga thank you to our $7 member, Autumn's Morning Lazo. And I'd like to give another gargantuan thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchio, Joaquin, Idem Okami, and China Doll 09. I'd like to give a thicker than a snicker thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give another thicker than a frozen jar of peanut butter thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.